So we also look at process perspective theories when we look at motivation, in addition to our content theory perspective. This really looks at how behaviors are initiated, sustained, and terminated. Our three key studies are Vroom's expectancy theory of choices, Adams' equity theory, and Locke's goal setting theory. I'm going to let y'all study these more in depth with your textbook as well as the PowerPoint notes, but I do want to give you a brief highlight here. Vroom's expectancy theory is all about the expectancies and beliefs behind performance. So if you're looking at if someone believes and expects that with hard work, their performance is going to improve, then their expectancy will be high. If they, you probably have remembered the kid on one of those movies that always was like, it doesn't matter, whatever I do, I won't get any better at it, right? So that kind of belief system, expectancy is low. No matter how much I work to improve this, it will not get better. So again, that's one theory. Then you look at Adams' equity theory, and it's kind of stated that there's a balance in between inputs and outcomes, right? So that there's this, if I put in time, effort, dedication, my outcome will be somewhat equal to the amount of work that I've put into this. So my outcome, the pay, my promotions, all of my position in the company or in this organization, those are going to be equal to what I've put into this, right? So there is some sort of equity between the two in terms of motivation. So if you believe that it requires a lot of hard work to be successful, again, you're going to put in that time and effort, and hopefully there will be some success outcome in terms of the beliefs behind the outcomes. And lastly, in terms of the process theories, we look at Locke's goal setting theory. Goal setting is super essential in terms of motivation with employees, with managers. The foundation behind this goal setting theory is really looking at someone's intentions about pursuing different goals, and really the behaviors that are the behaviors that drive these goals. So when someone is working towards a goal, it's very important if you are setting a goal for an employee, that they help create that goal, because that is the behavior that drives them to accomplish the goal if they work on it with you as a manager. That's very foundational. So I do want to make sure that you are familiar with these theories and that you do spend some time reviewing them and studying them. We're going to shift gears now into effective leading, and I'm going to show you some of the things that have kind of existed in terms of leadership. They have many times the thought concept of like leaders are not made, they're born. Well, that theory has really taken a back seat because it has evolved when they started studying leaders' traits. They then started studying leaders' traits and behaviors. And they've also started studying leaders' traits, behaviors in a specific situation. So all of this in terms of not just looking at someone's traits, what they're actually born with, but studying what they actually do. All of that evolution right there really showed that you could teach someone how to be a leader. So very, very important. And then, of course, it evolved even further with this specific situation. So you can see through here in terms of leadership traits, a lot of times there's a lot of drive behind successful leaders. They're honest. They have a lot of integrity. They have a lot of self-confidence. They're smart, right? Cognitive ability and knowledge. They also have something that's called emotional intelligence, and you've probably heard this before, but I want you to make sure you are familiar with all the aspects of emotional intelligence because it's incredibly important in terms of leadership. Self-awareness, self-regulation. The example I always give with self-regulation is I have 3 children, and as they came through the toddler years, I still have one in the toddler years, he's 3, and his self-regulation is quite different than my 9-year-old self-regulation. So, for example, if he doesn't get something that he wants, what does he do? He throws a fit, right? He is learning how to not throw a fit because of punishments, right? But my 9-year-old, she is able to regulate her emotions much better than my child, my toddler, right? So very important in terms of self-regulation, because you do have adults here that do not self-regulate correctly. All their emotions are out for the world to see. So that is not a leadership quality. That being able to self-regulate is incredibly important in terms of leadership. Motivation, empathy, social skills. I can't emphasize this enough. Social skills are incredibly important. Even if you are an introvert, and my introverts always have a little bit of a challenging time with this, like, I can be a leader too. Absolutely. There are so many wonderful, amazing introverted leaders, right? They drive motivation from themselves, from quiet reflection, not from other people, whereas extroverts really derive motivation. They derive energy from a social situation. However, many leaders can, many times, learning those social skills, learning, just really being interested in other people, it's incredibly foundational in leadership. So I want you to be familiar with these behavior traits, very, very important in terms of developing leadership qualities. So we're going to also look at leadership behaviors. You can read through several of these, but I'm going to point out several of them that I would like to highlight here. Empowering as well as representing. When you think of representing, I want you to think of, what do you actually stand for? What are you all about? What is your personality about? What does your life reflect? What do you represent? And when I say that, when we are developing this course, when we are developing college graduates, right? Because that's what we're working towards. We want to work towards making you a marketable commodity in terms of employment. So you are representing the University of Memphis, you're representing college graduates, and you're representing professionalism, right? We want you to graduate with some leadership skills. Representing means the way that you talk, the way that you act, the way that you conduct yourself, and thinking about that really proactively in terms of getting a job. And that's why we work on things like your first impressions in terms of you being able to write an email, being able to give a speech, right? All of those things contribute to your ability to represent yourself as a future professional. And then secondly, empowering, incredibly important in terms of motivating leaders, right? And motivating employees. If you're an empowering leader, then you are more of a visionary. You are looking at the end result. You are looking at that big picture, that transactional leadership. That transformational leadership, very, very important in terms of looking at that vision, that big picture, where we're going to go and how I'm going to help you get there and what we're going to do as a team to get there. Very, very important. So just a couple more slides here, and then we will finish for today. But you can see different, this is Tenenbaum's and Schmidt's continuum of leader styles model. You can see autocratic leaders, consultative leaders, participative leaders, democratic leaders. So with this, you really want to look at the contrast here. The autocratic style of leadership is really rather passé. I'm going to make the decision and I'm going to tell you what I decided. That has really started to become not the norm, which is wonderful, because really progress has been pushed forward without this type of leadership. Consultative, the leader is convincing the participants of how right his or her decision is. And so it's really more leader, like the manager focused, as opposed to we're doing this together. Participative leaders, they seek participant advice, but they ultimately make the decision on their own. And then democratic leaders, they define the limits of the problem and they allow the participants to make the decision. So again, these different types of leadership styles are appropriate for different situations. And that's what our very last kind of focus is in terms of looking at the situation in which someone leads. Really with democratic leaders, in terms of, you want to think about how this probably would not work in a militaristic setting, right? So you can't be like, hey, what do you guys want to do? Should we bomb these guys or not? It would not work, right? Having this kind of loosey-goosey, oh, this is kind of the problem. Y'all should all weigh in on this, right? No, you've elected people that are higher up to make these types of decisions. These types of ranking officers in the military have worked their way up. So again, you have to look at those types of situations and see what would work in this situation. Democratic leaders, this is a wonderful type of leadership style. But again, is it appropriate for all settings? So you have to think through these types of things, and looking through this in terms of the actual leadership style. So look through this. This is going to be where we're going to tie it off today. But I hope everyone is doing really well, and I will see you soon. Thanks.